Hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am the Sipping Tea, and today I'm going to talk to you all about the Cold War WZ 11166 Heavy Premium Tank. Briefly, however, I just want to make a couple of quick points before getting into the video. The first one is I just want to issue a sincere thank you to my two Patreon supporters at the moment. That is NB Hollywood and Niger898. Thank you both ever so much for your continued support on Patreon. It really does help me produce these videos. The second and final point before getting into the video is down in the description box below, you will see a few different links to a few different sort of associated sites for me. One is for Twitch. So I am now going to be streaming somewhat regularly on Twitch. So if you're not already following me on there, just to let you know that it is completely free to do so. And all it does is allow you to A, find me a little bit more easily on the website, and also you'll receive a notification when I go live. So, with all that being said, let's get on with the video. So to start things off with the WZ11166, let's have a look at the battle earn rates. So the silver earn rate on this tank, which is by far and away the crowning achievement, let's say, is a whopping 60% additional silver. Followed by tank XP earn rate is an additional 15%, and crew XP earn rate is an additional 10%. So this tank, if you have a good game in it, if you play it well, will very much reward you with some decent amounts of silver. And of course, if you have any sort of silver booster attached to it as well, then you really are going to be printing that money like there's no tomorrow. So moving on to the main key statistics of the tank. So the WZ11166 can be found in Era 1 of Cold War, which does mean that you won't have to worry about, for instance, missiles, which is always going to be a pleasant change of pace if you otherwise find yourself in Era 2 or Era 3 more often than Era 1. Getting straight into the gun statistics. So the standard rounds have 248 millimeters of penetration. The premium rounds have 320 millimeters of penetration, and if you so desire, you can fire high explosive rounds, which offer 61 millimeters of penetration. The standard rounds and the premium rounds both deal 390 damage alpha, and the high explosive rounds 530 damage. In regards to the rest of the statistics of the gun, the reload time is 11 seconds, which gives it a rate of fire of 5.45 rounds per minute. As per usual, of course, that is the vanilla, if you will, the standard or default statistics of the tank. So naturally, influencing factors like crew, equipment, and consumables can and will influence that. The accuracy of the gun is only 0.42, which I must say is my biggest bugbear with this tank, quite honestly. The accuracy, I feel, is just appalling. I mean, 0.42, that is one of the worst guns in Cold War, I would say. It's really not very accurate at all, so you'll certainly want to do everything you possibly can to get that accuracy a bit tighter. The aiming time is 2.7 seconds, which is also, honestly, it's an eternity when you're trying to aim down at something after you've just been moving. Nearly a 3-second aiming time is a very, very long time. Gun depression is 5 degrees, which is quite standard for a tank of its type, and elevation is an impressive 23 degrees. So moving on to the overall mobility of the tank. So the maximum forward speed is 50 kilometers an hour, and the top reverse speed is 15 kilometers an hour. Now, I can't really say anything bad about the forward speed. 50 kilometers an hour for a heavy tank in Era 1 is quite decent. However, the reverse speed at 15 kilometers an hour, if you're trying to dodge a shot or otherwise get out of the way of danger, just by poking behind a building or something, in reverse, then yeah, 15 is painfully slow. This thing does not have any reverse agility at all. The fire chance of the engine is just 12%, which, yeah, well, I think for those of you who've watched enough of my videos, you'll know that I do tend to favour a fire extinguisher, and this really is no exception. The Soviet era tanks really do enjoy catching fire, and this really isn't any sort of exception, to be perfectly honest with you. So, yeah, it is going to be perhaps worth your while to carry around a fire extinguisher on this tank, and you will see in the graphic that I will show in a moment that I indeed do carry a fire extinguisher on this tank. Moving on then to the vision range of the vehicle. So it is a heavy, of course, so it's not going to really. Well, it's not a scout, is it? So the vision range is 435 meters, whilst the still concealment is just 0.12. So it's a very large tank. It's not about stealth in this particular tank, of course. So yeah, you probably don't really want to be going down that path by any measure. So what I would refer to as sort of the quote unquote real life statistics of the tank regarding vision range and still concealment, because I know it's been brought to my attention in the past that when I list off the vision range and still concealment as I just have, it doesn't tend to mean an awful lot to a lot of people. So on the screen right now, you will see a little graphic showing the vision range and still concealment in the same way that you would see them in your garage. So vision range that I have on this tank, which is influenced ever so slightly in that in this picture, there isn't actually a crew inside, so vision range is actually going to be somewhat diminished for that reason, but nonetheless 444 meters vision range, and then still concealment 435 meters. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more understandable for some who may have otherwise suffered to or struggled to understand that. So here you can see an overview of the WZ111's armour. So let's take a look at each individual section of it once again. So you can see here at 20 millimeters, you've got the underside of the tank as well as the tracks right there. 25 millimeters, that is the engine deck and all of the very top of the main chassis of the tank. 30 millimeters, we've got a little bit of spaced armor on the side skirts just there, nothing too exciting. 45 millimeters for the actual cannon itself. 50 millimeters for part of the gun mantlet just there. 55 millimeters for the very top of the turret and the commander's hatch. 60 millimeters for the very back of the tank, including the very rear of the turret as well. And then we've got 80 millimeters, which is some internal hull armor there, and complementing the previous sort of side skirts as well. 100 millimeters is sort of the ring around the top of the turret. You can see to 120 millimeters is the main sort of thickness of the armor. You can see here that it dominates the tank significantly more than the rest of it. So 120 millimeters is the entirety of the frontal armor of the tank, some of the sides, and indeed some of the sides of the turret as well. The commander's hatches right there, and otherwise viewpoints are very, very well armored at 150 millimeters. A very thin sliver of armor at 180 millimeters right there. You'll be very lucky if that comes into play at any point in your battles. Another part of the gun mantlet, 200 millimeters. The side cheeks of the turret along with the turret ring, 230 millimeters, and finally you've got the final and outer part of the gun mantlet at 250 millimeters. So I think it's fair to say that the WZ111 does actually have some pretty decent armor, but as sort of seen before, as stated before, it is sort of lacking in other areas. So if it didn't have the armor, then it would take an already fairly, let's say, tricky tank down to a level where you just probably wouldn't play it under any circumstances. But yeah, otherwise I'd say the armour is actually reasonably good. So, moving on to the crew skills. As I mentioned earlier in the video when talking about the still concealment and vision range, that there isn't a crew in the tank. Ordinarily, of course, there is, but I did actually pinch the crew from the WZ111 and put it in the TVP 88, as that tank desperately needed a bit of assistance, as much as it could possibly get. So, ordinarily, when the crew is in fact back in the WZ111, the crew skills that I have on it currently are Sixth Sense, Born Leader, Run and Gun, and Rapid Loading. So, just like any of my other Cold War tanks, for the most part at least, the crew skills are always going to be somewhat limited, as I tend to use my Cold War tanks as crew training tanks. So that's why there's only 4 skills on the tank, but otherwise you will definitely want to have anything at all possible to increase the accuracy of the WZ111. As mentioned at the start of the video, the accuracy is certainly where the tank tends to struggle. So moving on from there, the equipment. Now, as per usual, of course, in my videos, some of the content or footage that I have is a bit older than others. So you will see that the consumables do actually change just a little bit. So my standard loadout these days for consumables is the premium repair kit, the standard med kit, and standard fire extinguisher. You will see in the first game that I was showing here that instead of the premium repair kit, it was just the bog standard one. Everything else was otherwise the same. Moving on now to the equipment of the WZ111. So I've gone for, as you see on the screen here, I've gone for vents, advanced loader, and gun stabilizer. Anything to reduce the reload time is always going to be beneficial on a tank that has a standard 11-second reload, which is horrendously long. And as I keep on bleating on about the accuracy of the tank, I think the gun stabilizer sort of speaks for itself. And obviously, ventilation complements both of those. In conclusion, I would say that the WZ111 regrettably isn't my favourite tank by any measure. Those who've spent any time with me in a platoon when I've been playing it have heard me bitterly complain about this tank. Had it not been a free tank with a season pass, yeah, I would either have never have bought it, or indeed would be suffering some serious buyer's remorse had I have done so. So if you don't already have the tank, then I can't honestly say that I would recommend that you get it. If it's thrown at you for free, then, well, happy days. You've got a free tank. I'd advise that you hold on to it, just like any premium tank, purely because if you happen to get it in a key card or a giveaway or by any other means, you will then get the well, either the silver or gold value for it, depending on the means of which it may have been given to you as duplicate. But yeah, I'm afraid that due to the lack of accuracy, the horrendously long reload, and also something I haven't really mentioned is the turret traverse, which is horrendously slow as well. This is not my favourite tank to play, but if you play it correctly, which I think would actually be more of a either a meat shield or a supporting tank, then yeah, you can get some good games out of it. And as mentioned at the start of the video, with a 60% silver earn rate, that is also going to line your pockets quite nicely with some silver. The final thing I will mention about the tank is perhaps the glaringly obvious, and that is the fact that when it did come out, it came with a skin. Subtle as it may be, some of you may or may not have noticed it. The bright red skin, very divisive from what I gather from hearing other people talk about it. But for me, I mean, it's a skin. I don't think it really matters too much when it comes to visibility on the battlefield, because either you're going to be really close to an enemy, in which case it doesn't matter what colour your tank is, you're going to be seen, or the tank is going to be so far back that it's probably going to be a relatively small dot on the screen, and you're possibly, or really ought to be, hidden behind a rock or a bush or something like that anyway. The same reason why I have flags on all of my tanks where I can. I don't care about the flag sticking up above a rock and potentially giving a position away. I think that's a little bit too sweaty, to be perfectly honest with you. I think you very rarely take additional damage for the sake of how your tank looks. So yeah, that is the end of the video. I'd like to once again direct you to the description box below, where you can see my various links to, say, Twitter and Twitch, and of course Patreon as well, and Coffee. The latter two just there. If you fancy supporting me financially, it really does go an awfully long way to helping me create these videos. As I've mentioned before, the equipment's very expensive. So yeah, if you can throw just even a couple of dollars, it all makes a difference. So yeah, if you can, the links are below. But that's it for the video. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.